welcome back to Passions Podcast, a very special episode. I'm your regular host, Latara, back with Dr. Eric Vera, my goodness, Dr. Eric Vera. And today we are joined by the one, the only McKenzie Westmore. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome, aka the American Princess, y'all.
I still get that to this day. I'm like, how do you still recognize me?
It is Sheridan Crane. It is so crazy to be here with you. I have so many memories of me watching this with my family. Particularly, my mom would always be like, "Ira, esa Sheridan está bien bonita." I mean, she would just. We'd have to pause.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, we'd have to
Gracias.
pause. Yes, most definitely. She's so excited that I'm talking to you today. But we'd have to pause
Tell her
our
hi.
VHS recording. Oh my God, I will. And we'd have to pause it because she'd be like, "Írala, ira está bien bonita." And all those amazing outfits that you had on, you were rocking it. And then, of course, she was just rooting for you and Luis.
Luis,
Yep.
Yeah.
who
Yes.
actually just talked to 2 days ago. And
Oh,
we are
wow.
planning an Instagram live together.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to tune in, obviously.
That's right.
Yes.
Obviously,
Well,
I will
I
tune
told
in.
him I'm going to handle it all. I'm going to help him with it and like getting through everything and set everything up, promote it the right way so that we get enough viewers that know about it.
Listen,
Great.
because my teenage self, teenage Latara was all over Luis Lopez Fitzgerald. I was all about Luis
All
Lopez
right.
Fitzgerald.
I
So,
love it.
yes.
Thank
So
you.
we're so happy to have you here. Thank you so much. Like,
Thank you.
I'm speechless, honestly. When I got the
So
message
cute.
about it, I was like, oh, and then I got your phone number. I was like, what do I do with this?
You just
So-
call me Latari. That's it. Just
I
call me.
almost
There you
see.
go.
I didn't call you because I was like, will she
No, I
answer
know,
the
you were so
phone?
sweet.
You know, I just was like, let me send her a text so she
And
at
I
least
would.
knows what my number is. So we have like tons of questions. We know that you have a different perspective on this show than obviously we do, and like other cast members have had. So we are really excited to hear like what your experience was like. So let's like dive right in. Well, the number one thing is I would like to know like just a little bit about your background, how you got into acting. I know that your family has been in Hollywood, like the
That's- yeah.
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 So I would love to hear more about that if you could tell us.
Absolutely. In fact, it's funny because this is when I go live on QVC and I have to Skype in, this is my setup.
Nice.
So I just like leave everything up and just leave it. When I did my podcast with Dr. Nassif, Demystify Beauty, I have the whole podcast thing set. It's still all here. Like, this is my world. So this behind me is, some of the basics to my family and where we are today. So going back to the late 1800s, my great-grandfather was the wig maker to the royal court and Winston Churchill's barber. And then early 1900s came to the United States. He and his sons opened up a wig shop on Sunset. And Adolphe Menjou was doing Three Musketeers at the time, silent films. And it was a time when actors did their own hair and makeup. Well, he shaved off part of his mustache. Didn't know what to do. Ran into my family's shop. They sewed together a tiny little piece of hair lace wig, glued it on. And that's when the director said, okay, actors are no longer touching their faces. They screw everything up as it is. So let's now create a makeup artist on set. So that was the birth of a true makeup artist on a Hollywood movie set. So from there, my family has done thousands and thousands of films. I mean, pretty much anytime you turn on a film from like the 50s, 60s, any 40s, 70s, all across their 80s, you'll see a Westmore name in the credits. Everything from Breakfast at Tiffany's, Creature from the Black Lagoon, 10 Commandments. My grandfather had Gone with the Wind, and that's actually partially what killed him, was the stress of it. And then moving all the way forward, you've got my dad, who carried on the family legacy, 9 Emmys, 1 Oscar. We got a star on the Walk of Fame in 2009, I think it was, 2008 or 2009, collectively as a family. And my dad and I, when we'd go to see it, like, by ourselves. And we'd always joke because no reality star has a star on the Walk of Fame. But the fact that we did a reality show together, we're like, hee, we're the only ones. Kardashians couldn't do it, but we did.
The Kardashians could never. Okay, let me be clear.
Never do.
Um,
Yeah.
no,
Oh,
that's an amazing legacy, but also like you said the buzzword for me, which is reality show, and I do recall a little bit back you tweeted something about being on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I don't know if you even remember this, but I just want to say if we could make that happen, I would be thrilled. I actually had to end up skipping this season because it was like not doing it for me. So, if you would keep going down that path, let's see if we can get Andy Cohen on the line and get you
if
on
we
the Real
can't, well,
Housewives of
here's a
Beverly
funny
Hills.
thing. I actually was interviewed,
Really?
and it did
Oh,
get down during the year of me and Denise Richards. But I don't have a ton of dirt on me. Like what you see is what you get, and I
yeah.
just spill it and I tell it all.
I
Will
think
I
that's
get
what
into it with someone? I will.
I think that's what makes a great housewife. Like I think that's what makes an excellent housewife. Somebody who's all their stuff is already laid out and they're
Fair.
willing to
Like no
just like
skeletons here.
say
Yeah.
what they want to say and I the authenticity, that's what is missing. I mean on
It
all of the
is. I agree with you.
franchises.
Yeah.
On all of the
There is a
franchises.
lack of there's some that are really good at it. Emily Simpson, she's a good friend of mine on Orange County,
Mhm.
and I think she's very authentic. I love her honesty. From her social media to being on the show. I love that woman with a passion, no pun intended. But she's just so near and dear to me, and I love her for her authenticity. Housewife wise, Beverly Hills, I don't know if you know this, but I've moved to Las Vegas.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So
No.
Beverly Hills would be a tough one, but if I think I can't, I'm shocked they haven't done a Housewives of Las
I
Vegas.
was about to
And
say that
let
would
me
be a
tell
great
you,
franchise.
the amount of friends that I have in the UFC world, in the Raiders world, I could line them up. In fact, I'm really good best friends with one of the top burlesque dancers here, the only American to ever dance on the Moulin Rouge stage. And I asked her one day, I was like, would you ever do this? She's like, in a heartbeat with you? Yeah, I'd do it.
Well, you know what? Now I have a new
Come on,
idea,
Andy.
which is
There you
which
go.
is that
Yeah.
which is that you get to produce your own reality show in
Well,
Vegas,
there you
a
go.
la because we need something new. The Real
We do.
Housewives
Yeah.
Yeah.
franchises. I used to love them. I haven't watched any of them much this season because whatever. But you know what? This show's not about the Real Housewives. This is Passions podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
A
have
whole other podcast.
ADHD, and sometimes I'll go off on tangents. So
That's why I was talking about this product, because of ADHD.
yeah,
You need this.
I'm
Hey,
gonna
well,
listen. If you sell it to me, I'll buy it. That's where
Orlo.
yeah.
You
well,
gotta get
it
Orlo.
was it's funny because her buzzword was that, and mine was all the makeup stuff that you were talking about. You're talking to an opera person, and I'm a theater person
I'm
here.
an
Me
opera
too. I've
So
been
person.
singing opera since I was 7.
she's the opera person. I'm the musical theater person. I
Me,
teach
my
theater
God, I love
history.
that.
Yeah, I teach
Oh,
theater
if
history,
you could
and
see right behind my camera here is the mask that Michael Crawford actually did wear in Phantom of the Opera. Right,
oh my
right back there,
goodness,
right up there is a signed poster from Les Miserables from the cast in Los Angeles.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my office is covered in musical theater because that was my goal. My dream as a little girl was to be in Phantom and Les Mis.
And
Wow.
so, and then, how does that? So there you are. You have this family background, and then you seek out an acting career.
So, in a nutshell, what happened was my dad, is doing all these amazing movies from Rocky to Rambo to he was with Elizabeth Taylor for 10 years. He was Sylvester Stallone. He got a start on the Munsters, making Eddie Munster's ears. Um, then moving forward, he got Star Trek and he did that for 10 years. And he really actually took it to He Could Be Home while I was growing up. But
Wow.
prior to that, he was doing a movie called Raging Bull. Robert De Niro would come over to the house
Just a little
to
movie
get, I
called
know,
Raging
just a
Bull.
little movie. Yeah. Wait, it gets better. It gets better. So Robert De Niro would come over to the house to get his makeup done because my dad had to put prosthetics on his face. And I was 3 years old. He'd get his prosthetics done. And my mom would be, doing, household work, and my dad would be working in the lab, and Robert De Niro would actually babysit me.
What?
So after a while, my mom kept saying to my dad, he's going to ask for her to be the daughter in the movie. My dad was like, no, he's not. Sure enough, he came to my dad and said, look, I get along with your daughter so well. Can she play my daughter in the movie? I'm the brunette by the pool. So I always
Really?
joke that was my first co-star was Robert De Niro.
That's not a joke.
What a
That's
co-star
legit.
to
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I know, right?
And so from then on,
Exactly.
you were just like, you kind of got the acting bug at that point.
I did. So I went through almost like a mute phase for some reason. And my mom being Canadian, it's not that we don't believe in therapy, but she just being Canadian wanted to go more natural route. They put me in theater.
Mm.
And when I would get on stage, my voice would come back. And I would be, as long as I could be someone else, I came alive. And it helped break me through that. And then slowly, I started to get into the singing thing one day. I guess I was like 7 years old, and it was like a Star Trek rerun, the original, and they heard the theme song coming from my bedroom, and they're like, "Oh, she's watching Star Trek." And I wasn't. It was me singing the theme song. So they're like, "Okay,
Nice.
off to opera she goes."
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that was the start of it all for me.
Well, so going off of that, at what point did you go to audition for Passions? Like, was it a casting call? Was it?
Yeah. It was a
So-
huge audition. I got to tell you, that was the most intimidating audition.
Yeah.
So I first went in and I met with the producers, and who have since passed, unfortunately. Because one thing I really did always appreciate with them is they had the foresight to see beyond because I was originally called in for Gwen, and I kept auditioning for Gwen. And I'll never forget sitting in the waiting room one day and seeing this girl walk by, and there was like all these people around her. And I was like, "Who's that?" And somebody was like, "Oh, that's Susan Lucci's daughter. She's up for the role Gwen." I was like, "Well, there goes that job. I'm not getting that one." Like, I'm not going to compete with Susan Lucci's daughter. Like,
right. On a soap opera of all things. Yeah.
Exactly. Of all things. I'm like, good for her, but I guess I can leave now. So I did leave, and they called me back for Sheridan, and because they had cast Gwen, obviously. And they said, but they did say, we never really saw you as Gwen. We think you're more suited for this role, Sheridan. Now, mind you, I'm like 19 at the time. So, and it's so funny because Sheridan was always like 28, 29. The character was always 10 years older than me. So I was like, okay, cool. Might as well. I'm not going to say no. But meantime, mind you, I had done a couple of guest roles. I went to the Fame School of Los Angeles for opera and theater and musical theater. I did an episode of Dexter. I did an episode of Weird Science, the TV show.
Yeah.
And long story short, things were not picking up. And my dad was asking people on the set of Star Trek, what did they recommend? And everybody was saying McKenzie should really audition for the Cincinnati School of Music, CCM. So I did. I got accepted. And this was the same time while I was auditioning for Passions. And I'll never forget getting the phone call of Passions. And I've got a couple of stories with that. But the quick one is I got the call for Passions, and then I asked my parents, like, what do I do? Because it was over the course of 6 months auditioning. So I called the dean of CCM, and they said, you take that job. You're doing what all of these students want to be doing. So take the job. We will always have a seat open for you here at the college, which I thought was so amazing. So going back to the audition process, long story short, I kept getting called in of all these things, finally get called in for Sheridan. Like I just mentioned, I kept stuffing my bra because I was like, I knew that it was a soap. I knew that it was like sexy daytime kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm sure they don't want like some flat chested chick. And, early 2000s, that was not the thing. We're talking about coming out of the Pamela Anderson era. So I was like, that's not going to happen. So I kept stuffing my bra. And then I remember going to my parents, and I was like, or my mom, and I was like, I'm just not comfortable with this right now. And she was like, if you want to go do something about it, I support you. So I went and got breast implants. And a week after, as I was recovering, I remember sitting in my parents' kitchen, totally depressed, recovering from surgery, couldn't get a job, and just was like, oh, what am I going to do with my life? And all of a sudden the phone rang. Now, mind you, I had just done an episode of Star Trek Voyager a couple months prior. And there was talk about bringing me back as a series regular as Ensign Jenkins. And so I was going to be Ensign Kim's love interest. So I pick up the phone, and it goes, hey, this is wardrobe. We need you to come in for fitting. And I'm like, oh, I'm coming back to Star Trek. And they're like, Star Trek? No, this is Passions. And I was like, what? Like, we need you to come in and do a fitting at Sheridan. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my. And then I just started bawling. Then my agent didn't have time to get to me. Wardrobe, they were the ones to break the news.
Wow.
I was sobbing because here I am, like, trying to figure out my life. What am I going to do? Shipping off to Cincinnati for school, I guess. And I get this 3-year contract. And I was blown away. And they said, do you have your passport? Because in a week you got to leave for France. It's like, okay, I just booked like dream job, dream trip. Like, I completely won the lottery, and it all happened on my 20th birthday.
Amazing.
Wow.
What? Talk about a happy birthday.
April 26th.
Oh, you have a birthday coming up.
April 26th.
Happy
yeah.
earliest birthday.
Thank you.
That is an amazing story. Like, especially the part where they were like, yeah, you have to go to France now. We're going to go to Paris and shoot on location.
Yeah. Don't twist my arm.
Which I feel like is like unheard of. Like, that they shot on location in Paris for like a soap opera.
Right away.
Like, yeah, it's unheard of. We did joke at the beginning of the podcast when we first started the show that they like blew their budget for that first year.
They did.
In Paris. And that's why so much of the rest of it is like, you're like, oh my goodness, what is this?
So
mess?
janky.
Yeah, we're just going to keep Sheridan in her cottage for a good long while now.
I was in that damn cottage forever.